If you're trying on a new pair of boots, or you've been wearing a new pair of boots for the past week or so, and you're wondering where they will break in and become more comfortable, that's what we're gonna talk about today. My name is Jeremiah Craig, and I have two boots here to show you where new boots will break in and stretch and where they won't. This right here is a 15-year-old pair of Boule boots, and this is a brand new pair of Ariat boots. So you can see the difference between what a boot looks like new and what it looks like after 15 years of use, where that leather has stretched and become broken in beyond belief. So let's start at the bottom of the boot and talk about the sole. Does the sole break in? Yes. A cowboy boot uses Goodyear welt construction, and usually that means that the sole is a little bit stiff when you get it new, and it will break in as you start to use it and bend the boot. I did a video with my brother a couple years ago where we talk about just that. If you want to break in a boot, use it. But the sole will only break in around the ball of the foot area right here. It won't break in at the arch because on the inside of this boot is a shank. So it's either like a metal piece or a composite hard piece of plastic, depending on what you go with, which brand, but it's not supposed to bend here. Like, it will never ever bend here, and if a cowboy boot bends at this spot, that means it's a bad cowboy boot and you should throw it away immediately. But the boot will break in here, and on rubber sole cowboy boots, sometimes it takes a little bit longer for that rubber to break in. But it's worth it a lot of times because the rubber outsole will last a lot longer than a leather outsole will. You'll have to get these resoled a lot more frequently than you will with the rubber outsole. Now let's move on up and talk about the toe of the cowboy boot. Will the toe break in? No, it won't. On the inside of this boot, there is either a hard leather or a celastic, which is a hardened fabric, depending on which brand you go with. And they use those methods so that the toe keeps its shape as much as possible. You don't want a toe getting all floppy and weird looking. You want it to pretty much stay the same throughout the life of the boot. So if you're feeling a lot of tightness up in this area of the boot, then that means your boot is too small and it will never ever break in there. So you might want to consider exchanging that boot or trying another size. Now let's talk about the Vamp, which is this area of the boot here, anything below the toe box. And you can see pretty much where the toe box ends on this Boule because it's cracked beyond belief because I spilled gasoline on these boots a while ago. Don't spill gasoline on your boots, guys. This area of the boot is the Vamp, and yes, it will break in and stretch. Anywhere across where your toes meet the side of the boot over here to where the ball of your foot meets the leather on this side. It will stretch this way. I mean, you don't want it to stretch too much. If you're feeling uncomfortable in here, then I would suggest sizing up. So it will stretch out all around the top of this boot. But remember, you don't want it to be too tight. You want it to be snug. And you can see the difference between a brand new boot and one that is 15 years old. The leather has stretched over the top of the welt, over the top of the sides of this boot on this Boule, and it can be seen clearly still on this Ariat over here. And I imagine with time, this Ariat will also stretch over the welt somewhat. This is a better size for me than what this boot was at the time, so it may not stretch as much, but it will still stretch over the welt a little bit. Now let's turn this boot around and talk about the heel. Will this stretch or break in? Definitely not. There is no reason why this heel should stretch or break in. Now, some of you out there might consider normal wear and tear on a heel cap breaking in. I don't. I just consider it normal wear and tear, and you'll eventually have to get these replaced anyways. But this is a part of the boot that is meant to support the rest of the boot. So there should be no stretching, no breaking in on this heel. Let's move up to the counter, which is this part of the boot that wraps around the back of the heel. Should this break in? No, it should not. What's inside this, again, is a hard leather or Celastic. A lot of companies will also use plastic in here as a cost savings mechanism, but really the best way to go is a hard leather counter, and it should never ever move or shift. If this starts to lean or sag, then you might want to consider throwing those boots out and getting another pair, because the counter is the support for the entire boot. If anything happens to this counter, then the integrity of the boot is called into question. The entire boot, because it starts to lean or sag, then you're not gonna get the support you need, and you might start to feel ankle pain or some other sorts of pain. This should never ever move or shift or have anything happen to it. It should always stay upright. Speaking of staying upright, let's talk about the tops or the shaft of the boot. This will break in. It will start to sag, right, as you wear this boot a lot. And you can see that this one has quite a bit of sag when compared to a brand new boot like this. And this part of the boot break-in is pretty much optional. You can keep the cardboard stays that come with boots now in there for the life of this boot, or you can put like pool noodles, plastic shapers, or boot trees that will keep this straight up, right? Or you can just let it sag, and eventually with time, gravity will bring this down. There are a lot of people out there who don't like this look and want a boot to stay straight up and down, but there is another camp of people who pretty much see this as clout, right? They don't want to talk to you unless your boots have a sag like this. So it can go either way. A lot of times I like my dress boots, like my exotics, to stay as straight as possible, as nice looking as possible, but then I don't really care about my beater boots getting that sag. I also see it as a point of personality and soul that boots can obtain throughout the months and years that you wear them. All right, now let's talk about the insole. Will that break in? Yes, it will, especially if it's a non-removable leather insole. Over the months and years that you wear a boot with a non-removable leather insole, it will begin to take the shape of your foot. Like you could stick a camera down in your boot over the months and years and sort of see the little toe grooves that begin to take shape in the bottom of that boot, and it's really cool. And it's one reason why I don't share my boots with anybody, because I don't want them to mess up my toe grooves, you know what I'm saying? I made a video about that a couple years ago that you can see above. However, that is not quite the case with a boot that has a removable insole like this brand new Ariat. This won't break in, it will just eventually wear out, and you'll have to get another one and replace them. So this is just something that happens with removable insoles, and I know a lot of people like this feeling a lot better, especially if you're coming from the sneaker world and you want a little bit more cushion inside the boot. There's nothing wrong with it, it's just a different preference. Like I said, I prefer the non-removable leather insoles because they take the shape of your foot, and there seriously is no other feeling like it. It is so comfortable, and it's a comfort that you earned. Thank you so much for watching today. Don't forget, fit is the most important thing. So yes, a cowboy boot will stretch, but make sure that you have the right fit above all else. Don't forget to subscribe while you're here. I am doing cowboy boot videos all the times and giveaways too. So if you subscribe, hey, you never know, you might win a pair of boots. Thanks for watching today, and I'll see you guys around. Peace.
It helps to know where your boot will break in when you try it on, so you know if your fit is right or if it's wrong. Yeah. Why don't you just check out this video up here, a little bit more about fits. Make sure that you're getting the right size online or in person. Or I got a music video down here that I think you might enjoy. Thank you so much for watching today. Why don't you subscribe over here, and I'll catch you next time. Peace. Have a good one.